sont crazy.
So you can see they're quite clever. Okay, that's not actually how they did it, but they did do it. In 2004, there were sheep in the Yorkshire Moors in England who were, I don't want to say terrorizing, as much as a sheep can terrorize, but they would escape from their fields, getting over Kattegat. Actually, this one's a rather short one, but the ones that they were escaping over was like 10 feet long. And the way they would do it is they would lay down on their side or their back and then roll across the grate to get to the other side. And not only that, but the one sheep that figured it out taught the other sheep how to do it. And so again, highly motivated by the food that was on the other side. They ruined people's gardens and things like that. And so, you know, they're not stupid animals. But I will say they certainly are, the one thing they are, however, is they are entirely reliant on shepherds for their provision. Not counting wild sheep, obviously wild sheep. But sheep were one of the first species of animal domesticated. We talked about Cain earlier. If you look at, you know, the world was created and then Cain was raising sheep. And so the modern sheep species we have today have obviously been bred to increase their wool production, but at the same time, they don't shed their wool like a wild sheep would every year. And so until the sheep is shorn, wool will grow indefinitely. And while sheep are not stupid, as we just saw, they certainly are more clever at getting into trouble than they are at getting out of it. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that because all we like sheep have gone astray. Isaiah 53:6, which I have up here, it says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And version of this is, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The Lord, our shepherd, has provided for us, has protected us, has guided us, has fed us, and we have despised his provision. It would be like this. I have a picture of a sheep in a field here. This is terrible. Wonderful field. Man, I wish I had something else, anything else. And that's what we're like. We go astray. We want, I wonder if the grass is tastier over there. I wonder what's on the other side of this guard. We look beyond. We escape his boundaries and his guidance. But here's the news. There is no escaping. We are created to be his sheep. Psalm 103, Psalm 100, verse 3, says, know that he is the Lord. Know that the Lord, he is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. And I want to get at, so like, just as domestic sheep are reliant on shepherd for provision, for care, we are reliant on that provision as well. And here's the consequences of what happens when the sheep avoid their shepherd. So I have a picture up here. This is Shrek the sheep here. So Shrek the sheep was 2004 again. Was discovered in 2004. He had been roaming for 5 years, which is why they called him Shrek. But he's overgrown. By when they shore him, it was 60. And this isn't the only time this has happened. This is in New Zealand, by the way. But there was another one. This is Chris the sheep. And I actually have a before and after of Chris the sheep. So Chris the sheep was in Australia before they finally caught him and shore him. And I want to bring up a couple things here. You can see the before and after. Chris the sheep here, when they shore his wool, it was 90 pounds of wool. And it was completely unusable, like worthless. And I would like to draw the analogy too, when we escape and we are overgrown, some of the fruits of our labor, the wool we've grown in those periods, completely fruitless, worthless, unusable. Not only that, but Chris the sheep was permanently crippled from the weight of his wool. His back legs were misshapen and imbalanced to the extra weight. And he lived his life well, the rest of his life, in a sanctuary for sheep, but he was never the same again after that. You know, it might have seemed good at the beginning, but it was not that way. And just like the domestic sheep were created to be led by a shepherd, we are created to be God's sheep. And so when we escape, this is the result. And actually, so again, a more human version of this is Psalm 49, 13 through 14. This is talking about people who trust in themselves to make it to heaven, to redeem their life. And it says, "This is the path of those who have foolish confidence. Yet after them people approve of their boasts. Like sheep, they are appointed for Sheol, which is the grave, the pit, the death. Death shall be their shepherd, and the upright shall rule over them in the morning. Their form shall be consumed in Sheol, with no place to dwell." So the fact of the matter is, if we're not relying on the Lord for our provision, death is our shepherd and will lead us to the grave. And there's not really any way around that, unfortunately, or fortunately. So what's the alternative? The next verse down, Psalm 49:15, it says, "But God will ransom my soul from the power of Sheol, and he will receive me," which kind of mimics in verse 3, "He will restore my soul." So kind of as I'm wrapping up here, I want to go through verse by verse here, but are you in want today? Are you lacking? Well, don't worry about it. Here, go to the next slide, please. Don't worry about your food or your clothes. Do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink. Do not be worried, for all the nations of the world seek after these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, seek his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the needy, provide yourself with money bags that do not grow old, with treasure in heaven that does not fail, where no thief approaches, no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We even sung it today, "All I have needed, you have provided." And that's there for us. Man does not live by bread alone, just as sheep don't eat, well, I guess sheep do only eat grass. But man does not live by bread alone. It is written, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." And Jesus himself claims to be our bread and water. John 6:35 says, Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst." God is wanting to feed and clothe you. Are you lost today? Jesus in Luke 15:4 says, "What man of you, having 100 sheep, having lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it?" Again, Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, 13 and 14 says, "Enter by the narrow gate. For the gate is wide, and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter it by it are many. For the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few." The Lord wants to lead you on the right paths today, if only we'll accept his leadership. Jesus also says he's the door to the sheep. John 10, 7 through 9 says, "Truly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and will go in and out and find pasture. Are you in a valley today? First of all, keep walking. One thing I like about that verse is, even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for he is with me. So the Lord is with you today if you're in that valley, but keep walking. It doesn't say, though I loiter in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no. Keep moving. And Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. Matthew 1, 21 through 23. God is with us. Are you discomforted today? Well, look to the rod and the staff. We talked about that. Look to God's rod and staff. Psalm 119, 49 through 52 says, remember your word to your servant, in which you have made me hope. This is my comfort in my affliction, that your promise gives me life. God's promise, his word, gives us life. The insolent utterly deride me, but I do not turn away from your law. When I think of your rules from of old, I take comfort, O Lord. And I wonder how many of us today take comfort in the correction, the law, the guidance. But it is our duty as sheep to listen to the shepherd. And it's important to note here too that the Lord is not just a shepherd. He is your shepherd. This isn't just a general thing. He's not a leader, a caretaker. The Lord wants to be your shepherd. He wants to guide you. He wants to take care of you. He wants to provide for you, just as he did for David. And just as he does for each one of us. We are in a herd. John 10, 27 through 28 says, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. It's a personal thing. It's not just a theoretical thing. And so I challenge us all today to think about how we've been as sheep, how we trust in his provision, trust in his leading us, trust in where we need to go, and trust in his protection from evil, but also in his correction. So I pray, Lord, that you listen to the voice of the shepherd as you are in the Word, as you're here on a Sunday, as you're here on a Wednesday, as you're meeting with friends in small groups and things. Listen to what the Lord has to say and follow his voice, because it will be good. It will be good. That's all I have. Thanks, John.